when you're scaling, there's almost always some point where you invest heavily in infrastructure that you don't yet need. And then at some point now you need to sell a video to make payroll for 20 people or 30 people. It's not like those things suddenly magically once the business is more stable. But I would love to kind of just take a minute here. I know you're busy, so I'm not going to keep you super long here. But just if you could share a little bit about, okay, so 2015 comes along and you start to build now a real business. You have employees, you have processes, you have systems, and you're starting to manage it more strategically and more intelligently. You're narrowing down to a niche. I've seen you give the same presentation probably 50 times. So I know you developed one really sharp presentation to help you bring business in the door. I wonder if you could just share a little bit like what that transition was like from you. So you're in this hustle phase and you're just taking anyone and anything in order to get it off the ground, and setback after setback. And now you're starting to build something that's a much kind of like more strategic container, and kind of just if you could share a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think it's also a big mindset shift, because in the early days, it's such a to a degree, it's almost like this scarcity mindset of and frugality, where I've got to maximize every single dollar, right? Because you don't have that many dollars, and it's almost this risk aversion, if you will, of placing larger bets or investing in people or asking for help or whatever it might be, because you just don't have much to work with at that time. But once we get to 2014, 2015, I realized that ultimately I've got to humble myself and I have to ask for help. And this idea of having great people around you, I mean, I'll tell you that I think that's the most powerful thing. You get the people right, you get the business right. And having people, when I say this, it's that their strengths complement yours. So areas where you're not strong, they're strong. So maybe I wasn't the guy to create the systems and processes, but I have people who love that stuff, right? They may not love sales and marketing, but they love systems and processes and operations. They could free me up from that, and that continue to scale in every single aspect and department of the business. And rather than looking at hiring someone or bringing someone on board as a cost, right, as something that this is going to increase our overheads, I look at it now from the standpoint of, okay, this is an investment. This is going to help us make more money. This is going to help us expand our capacity, expand our capabilities. This is going to allow us to be able to grow, and it's going to free up my time to spend it in ways that are going to be much more intentional to the growth of the business. So as this is happening, yes, the team is growing, the team's expanding. I'm starting to get the hang of this stuff, and I still am learning. I mean, every single day, because there's very different challenges at every level. Frankie, to your point, the problems never go away. You just trade in your current problems for different problems, right? Certain problems under $1 million, different problems at $1 million, $5 million, $10 million, $20 million, different problems at $30 million. They are entirely different. So it's not this approach of like, hey, let me just be problem free, because so long as you're growing, hopefully you're actually creating problems. But in I think it was 2016, this is where things, we saw this huge inflection point from 2016 to 2017 is really where it happened.
When I first met you.
Yeah. And that was where I placed this big bet of, I wanted to get us noticed. I wanted it just, so we at that point focused in on like the legal industry, working with law firm owners. I guess it's a story for another day, because that's where we work exclusively now. And there's a lot of companies in that space. There's 1.3 million attorneys, super saturated, super competitive market. And we were growing, like one client at a time, but it wasn't exponential. And, and I looked at it from the standpoint and said, this is going to take too long. We've got to get noticed. We've got to get in front of more people. And we decided to do this client referral program. I bought this Tesla Model S, this car for $77,000, and we were going to launch this client referral program.
Can I just stop you right there and just say, Michael has a history of doing like really big ballsy shit, for those of you guys who don't know. But anyways, continue.
Well, at the time, I didn't have a history of that, right? So like, meaning that to me was a big kickoff point. And so I got this car, and people are like, how did you get, this Tesla? And I'm like, well, we went to the dealership and I wrote them a check and they gave me one. But I think what a lot of people are really asking is, how could you justify doing that, right? And the reality of it was that I wanted to do something big to get noticed. So our clients, when they would refer a client to us, they would get a referral credit. And then we would, do a raffle the following year, and the winner, basically the more credits you had, the better your odds. And then the winner would get this Tesla Model S. Now, when we announced this program, I thought it was going to be a huge success. Like, at the time, people weren't giving cars away. And, what I found over the first 30 days is that we didn't get a single referral. Like no one cared. So that made me extremely nervous because, at that point I cleared out all my savings that I'd built to that point. And I, drive into the office, I see this car parked out front and my eye twitched for a year straight. But that also, we had to be very creative. We had to do a lot of education on what the program was, how it worked, how to refer, what to do. It just required a lot more support and a lot more pushing than we'd anticipated. So, another lesson learned. But we gave the car away the following year at the AVO conference in 2017. Was a huge hit. And I'll speed up this story because that was a huge inflection point of, I guess, courage for me. That was such a huge hit that the following year we decided to do it again at a conference in January, I believe. And we gave away a Tesla Model X. That program itself went well, but the giveaway went, quite poor. It was right after, I think, Super Bowl Sunday. There was 9 people in the room. We draw the winner. They're not even physically there, right? Like they're somewhere else. They didn't attend the conference. So it was very anticlimactic. And at that point, we decided that if we're going to do this again, we're not going to give away our grand prize at another person's conference. So why don't we host our own? And later that year was the launch of our first law firm growth conference, the Game Changers Summit. Also at that conference, I released our book, The Game Changing Attorney. And, that conference led to the second and then the third and so on. But really over the last 4 years now, we've now given away, I believe, 13 or 14 cars. We are set to have our 4th conference in November. And, the team grew at the time in 2016. I believe we were about 13 people. Now we're over 80. And also at that time, let's say between 2014, 15, from 1 million to now, over 40 million. And I will say it wasn't as simple as just giving a car away or doing a conference or a book. But the real lesson there is that I started placing bigger and bigger bets. And these were things of us actually investing in our clients, in our team, in our business. Because when you look at it from the standpoint of, okay, what did the book do, right? Like that was a huge time investment, not even just the financial one. That helped us a lot from a thought leadership standpoint. It helped build a lot of credibility and trust. Same thing with the conference. But because we were doing all these things, it was creating a lot of interesting challenges and problems to solve where we had to become better marketers. We had to become better, client service and customer success, team members, all these things, and even growing operationally. But those big bets helped us grow exponentially and not just incrementally. So I look back at that, and that actually, from 2016, 17, that was probably the biggest mindset shift, and it kicked off everything else.